I'm here to give you guys a review of Stray, that new cat game that came out in July, just a few days ago when I made this video, and tell you what you need to know before you buy, should you buy, shouldn't you buy. I'm just going to tell you everything you need to know. I played the game, I did a 100% of the game, so I've literally seen everything there is in the game other than getting a few achievements that are more trivial, not about actually accomplishing all the things in the game. So, from that perspective, I have a really good idea of what I'm talking about when it comes to how this game is. So let's go ahead and jump in some gameplay footage while I talk about it. Let's start with the most basic part of why this game is good or bad, depending on how you feel. Do you like cats? Yes or no? You can immediately rule out this game, or you can roll it in just from that. If you hate cats, then you're going to hate this game because you're going to feel annoyed the entire time because you're going to see a cat constantly. If you love cats, then you're much more likely to like this game, even if you're not normally into the genre that this game is. And if you're neutral towards cats, then it's really more about the game mechanics and the story, which we'll get into as we go through this review. So first off, being a cat, if you're neutral or like cats, being a cat is very entertaining. The way they did it, they really let you exist in this world as a cat, whether that's sleeping on some random place, or scratching the floor, or scratching a wall, or meowing. I mean, the game lets you meow, and you can just meow whenever you want. So for me, I was literally just pressing the meow button non-stop while I was playing, the entire playthrough, basically. It's just what I do. Other than being a cat, though, the mechanics of the game are very sound. It's really about sticking to ledges and jumping from ledge to ledge is like 80% of the gameplay, and it's really clean, it's very polished. You can't walk off ledges and die. There's invisible walls everywhere. It's just you either jump or you don't. There's none of that stuff of falling to your death. And it's very on rails, very controlled, but it's really mechanically sound. It feels really good to jump around. They did a really good job making it clean and polished, so that's definitely a big plus. The mechanics of this game are generally good. There's a few glitches here and there, like I got stuck on a few things. There's one time in my run that I had to back out of the menu and come in because I was stuck in some weird walking animation on a ledge and couldn't move. But overall, it's very well done and very polished. Very few bugs with any of the mechanics. Now, with that out of the way, what is this game? Like, what are you actually doing in this game? Well, the best way I can describe this game is a combination of PlayStation 1 games and a modern visual story-driven AAA type of feel of game. So the graphics are good, there's story to it, there's more story than you would expect considering the fact that you're literally just a cat. But the story is not super attached to what's going on. But there is a very deep story. It will evoke emotion and stuff, so it's pretty well done. But the main gist of it is, if you've ever played old PlayStation 1 games, and there were just trivial things towards 100%ing the game. You know, you play like Banjo-Kazooie or something, it'd be like, I don't even remember, it was so long ago I don't remember, but it's like, okay, you need to get all of the, I don't know, like berries in some place, and there's like, you got 7 of 8, oh, you got 8 of 8, and you know, you 100% the game. This game, Stray, feels exactly like that. That is exactly how it feels when you're playing this game. So there's that, but with a much better story, because those old PlayStation 1 games, the stories were not very cohesive and, you know, didn't invoke a lot of emotion. They were pretty just like trivial and cartoony. It was more of the game mechanics and collecting 100%. So there's some crossover, but then also the actual story is very drawn in, and which brings me to like kind of the next point. The story was pretty good. Like I'm not gonna, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. I'll say story is pretty good. There are drawbacks. I'm gonna talk about all the negatives in just a second, but overall, for the majority of the gameplay experience, the story's pretty good relative to what they're trying to describe to us in their universe. And yeah, pretty cohesive. There were no like obvious loose ends or anything super bad. Some of the stuff was like questionable, but I can't really get into it without spoiling the game. Like there were certain things that happened. I think of one thing in particular near the end of the game where I was like, why? What? Like this door, you can literally close the door, and these other things don't have hands. What you're saying makes absolutely no sense, right? Like, so that's as much as I can say without spoiling it. You'll know when you get there what that means. You won't know what that. Hope that won't spoil it, and you'll get there and you'll be like, yeah, I this is totally the moment. I see what he means. Like, what the heck? Why? But overall, pretty good. And then it did evoke some pretty good emotions, you know, from the moment of just being a cat and, you know, jumping back and be like, whatever, and just funny moments that make you laugh, all the way to moments that make you feel just a little bit of a gut punch type, like, oh man, like you feel sad or something a little bit, you know, but in a good way, right? Like a good story being told. So overall, all that, good. Everything I just talked about, pretty decent. You know, I'd rate it pretty high on all that. But there are some drawbacks with the game that come at a trade-off. So first off, the game is too short. But in return for that, at least when I made this video on launch, the game was $30. So, you know, you gotta weigh the $30 versus how much time you get. Now, if you speed through the story and you don't try to 100% the game at all, you're just kind of just doing whatever and you just get through, depending on how good you are mechanically with this type of game, you'll beat the game in like 3 to 6 hours, maybe 8 if you're really slow. That's how short the game is. It's actually that short. You can go back to previous chapters on your save. You can replay those previous chapters and stuff. But it's really a short game. It's a very, very short game. So probably why they made it $30. Now, the next problem that I kind of had with the game was it was extremely on rails, if you know what that means. Where, if you know what it's like, the polar opposite of an open world sandbox game, which is fine, right? Not every game has to be open world and all that, but it was, I guess it's not the most extreme, but it was pretty extreme, where the only openness to the story and being on rails was at 3 different points in the game, really just 2 though, where you can kind of go looking around just for the sole purpose of doing the 100%. Like, if you're just going for the main story, I mean, you feel as on rails or more as like a Tomb Raider game, if you ever played one of those. Like, it's very much just, you don't get much choice in anything. I don't think there was, I don't think you get choice in literally anything, come to think of it. Looking back on my gameplay experience, the only choice you have is not 100%ing the game. As far as what happens in the game, I can't think of any choice you have that changes anything now. It's just, the game just tells itself, and it's a story. It's like watching a movie. That's it. You know, it's telling you a story. You don't get to change it at all. So either you enjoy it or you don't. Okay, so not like a Mass Effect game. It's gonna be polar opposite, right? So that was kind of, you know, a letdown in a way, but you know, it's their game and they can make a package of how they want. So I mean, overall, they made the game they wanted to make, and it's okay. I mean, that's not like the worst con ever, right? Not every game has to be open, so it's fine, really. But that is a negative, so if that's a big deal to you, that's something you need to know about before you buy this game. And then the last negative to this one, and I'll say as much as I can without spoiling the ending, okay? The bottom line was, the ending was just terrible. The ending was honestly just terrible. That is my honest opinion. Hopefully that's not a spoiler for you before you buy it, just knowing that, and whatever, but like, you need to know that the spoiler was like, the whole game was like, you're feeling like this story is great, this is good, you know, there's a few little things, this is really good. And then the ending's just like, okay, what? You know, like, it's not like some perfect ending. It's not like a bad ending, right? Like, it was kind of just, I don't know how to say more without spoiling it, right? But like, the ending was a letdown. Let's just say that. That's really, that's much, even that's kind of spoiling the emotion of when you get there, kind of expecting now of what might, like, you're like, what's going to be the letdown, or you're going to be thinking that as you get to that point. So it's already like spoiled in that way, but you got to know, like, you're going to spend $30 on, if you're one of the people where $30 is a big deal, like, you need to know that's one of the actual big cons of the game, is the ending's not what you would, I mean, there's a lot of options, but I feel like for most players it's not the option they would want it to be. So that's a big deal, in my opinion. So with all of that out of the way, everything I just talked about, I would rate the game in 2 different ways. So in a general, like, how good is this game compared to other games in the world, just in general. And then I would also rate this game in the sense of, how does this game compare to other games that try to do the same thing? So that's really like what matters here, because, you know, if you're into the genre, then you want to know that, and if you're just playing in general and you're open to playing different types of games, it doesn't matter. So in general, compared to other games, compared to just anything under the sun, Horizon Forbidden West, CSGO, Minecraft, Among Us, just literally in the world of video games, how would I rate this personally? From my experience as someone who enjoys a plethora of games, I've played almost every genre of game and enjoyed it for one thing or another, other than visual novels. And I personally would rate the game in that sense about a 7. Somewhere between a 6 and an 8, but I'd probably go with 7. And the reason I would do that is because it's like I'm spending $30. It was pretty good, but I've had other games where I've spent, you know, $20 and had a lot more satisfaction with what's happening or how it went or how much time I spent. Like, all factors considered. It's hard to, like, get to the nitty-gritty of why, but just overall, that's about where it lands for me. And then in the field of how does it line up against other games that kind of do the same thing. So I think of Tomb Raider, for example, which some of you might think that's insane because you're a cat, right? It's kind of the same game, right? You're just mechanics, like you're jumping from ledges, like, you know, Tomb Raider's different because you're shooting guns and there's grappling, but it's on-rail game, platformer, three-dimensional type of feel, like all this type of stuff. Even comparing it to a game like Spyro the Dragon 1, 2, and 3 for PlayStation 1 and 2 or whatever, like even thinking in those terms of the genre of what this tries to be, or even like Dino Crisis or some random thing, like trying to think in this field in some way, shape, or form, I would rate this game in that sense at least an 8 out of 10. I would at least give it an 8 out of 10. It's hard to get that like 100% certainty on how I feel about it. It'd be between a 7 and a 9, and I'm just going to go with an 8, but just know I'm like leaning in that whole area of 7 and 9 on that scale, but I'm leaning higher in that, probably 8. So it's pretty good. It's just too short. The ending kind of just dropped the ball, and it was, but with that rating, that being on rails is kind of excluded because the genre is always on rails. And then the cat, being the cat was phenomenal. Being the cat, if you weren't the cat, this game would be like a 6 out of 10 in that same rating. The cat added so much to the game. It was unbelievable the amount of entertainment I felt by being the cat. Like, and the game's short enough that it doesn't even hardly wear off by the end. By the time you get to like the last 2 hours of the game, you're like, you know, kind of going dead to meowing. You're not really feeling entertained by it anymore. You're going dead to scratching on things. Like, I don't think, even by the end, I didn't go dead to, you know, jump scares on the cat and be like, "Rah!" and jump back, or like that was still funny, even to the end. So that really sold the game. If you were not a cat, if you were just like a little robot guy or something, oh, the game would not be so good anymore. I don't know. It would not be the same thing. So hopefully this helps you out. Hopefully this review helps you decide whether you want to buy the game or not. Hopefully I didn't spoil too much for you. I did my best to try to control spoilers in this. Yeah, it's decent. 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10, depending on which way you're trying to scale or gauge the game. And I had fun. I did 100% of the game, doing a few more videos with it, little guides and things, and I'm probably just gonna, you know, drop it after that. It's not a game that you're gonna replay more than 100% unless you're a speedrunner. Oh, that is one last point. Speedrunners are gonna love the game. It's gonna be an amazing speedrunner game, so keep that in mind. But yeah, that's my review of Stray, and hopefully that helps you decide whether or not you should buy the game. Those are the things you should know before you buy, and hopefully now you have a better decision about whether or not you should buy Stray on release.